What is Uber and Lyft going to do in California as the deadline for compliance with AB5 nears? I think we have the answer. Let's talk about it. Welcome everyone, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Travel Time. If you're new to the channel, I'm going to ask that you click my face in the corner and don't forget to ring that bell icon. That way you'll know when I post new videos. This has been brewing for a long time. A lot of people thought once January 1st hit, everybody in California that's driving for Uber and Lyft to be employees. As we now know, that's not the way it played out. However, recently it was legally challenged or brought to court, and a judge determined, yep, Uber, Lyft, you have to comply with AB5. So here's what's happening. They have a deadline. The judge did give them a 10-day stay. They appealed. The appeal was rejected. So they've got about 3 more days to make a decision. What are they going to do? Uber says we're going to shut down operations, or at least they've hinted that that's an option. The way I see it, there are 4 directions they can go. Let's dissect every one of those. I'm going to start with what I think are the least likely and build up to what I think may very well occur. So the first thing they may do is just concede and comply. Meaning in 3 days they say, okay, I guess we are going to consider our drivers to be employees, and we're going to start honoring employment agreements. We're going to give them benefits, time off, paid sick leave, health insurance, anything that goes hand in hand with being an employer in the state of California. I don't think they're going to do it. They have shown that they don't want to cave to AB5. I don't know why things are suddenly going to change. Not only that, but they have Proposition 22 that is going to be voted on in the upcoming election. That would, in effect, exempt them from AB5. So if they concede now, when the election comes, people are going to say, hey, things are going great. Drivers are employees. What's the point of changing things? They're not going to disrupt that apple cart. So I think that the likelihood they're going to concede and comply and make drivers employees is extremely low. The next thing they might do is ignore it and continue on business as usual, hoping that it'll last until Proposition 22 is voted upon. That would be about the stupidest decision they could make, and I don't think they're going to be that reckless. If you just summarily dismiss and ignore a court order, they could shut you down. Probably not for good, but they would probably penalize them in some way. The state of California might pull their ability to operate in that state for a period of time. I don't think Uber and Lyft would risk that. The third option, they could get an extension. There is a 10-day stay. Maybe a higher court could, probably unlikely they'll overturn the decision, but they could extend that stay possibly as long as until the election when Proposition 22 is voted upon. I think that is a pretty likely scenario that they could get a court to extend that. They're arguing they're not ready. They couldn't go to an employee business model very rapidly. I don't think that's true. Uber has had 8 months. They knew that this was a possibility. They wouldn't have put it off for this long. So I don't know if that argument would hold water, but they might find a sympathetic court that would at least extend the stay, since there is going to be the proposition on the ballot. So that is very, very likely. And the last scenario, as I see it, which is a pretty clever and creative one, is to license their brand to fleet vehicle operators. And this is really, really likely, because this is a way that the companies, Uber and Lyft, can continue to make money. They continue to have the Uber app being used. They continue to have cars out there. Now, there wouldn't be as many, but it would be far less disruption of their service. With the exception of getting that stay extended, this, I think, is a very likely option. Now, it's not just me saying this. Uber actually had a discussion about this with the New York Times. I'm going to read to you what they said. This is similar to how Uber Black operated a decade ago with higher prices and less reliability. So they're already poo-pooing the idea. They don't want to put it in the court's ear yet saying, oh, these guys have an option, let's go with that. So they have to temper it by saying it's going to be more expensive, it's going to be less reliable. In some models, drivers would bring their own cars. In others, the cars are owned by the fleet. In either case, drivers would likely earn a predetermined hourly wage. That's really important because that is one of the things that they're pushing for in California for their time on app. But in exchange, fleets would need to monitor and enforce drivers' activity and efficiency. So we've talked about it on this channel. How do you know they're working? How do you know they're just not on the app and not actually driving? This would be up to the fleet to enforce. For instance, by putting drivers into shifts, drivers don't want that, dictating where and when they must drive, and enforcing trip acceptance criteria. So they're giving examples on how it would be forced. They're doing something secretly there too, aren't they? If you're reading behind the lines, what they're hinting at is drivers, if AB5 goes through, I mean it went through already, but if they enforce it and Prop 22 fails, this is your future. This is what we're looking at. That's what they're saying if you read between the lines. We're not sure whether a fleet model would ultimately be viable in California. So obviously, they have thought about this. They've considered it. I would be very, very surprised if they haven't secretly reached out to some fleet operators, which makes me wonder about some Uber tubers. I'm thinking of one in particular that is a fleet operator. May already know some things, but they're not being fair to the viewers by not saying anything about this. Lyft told the Times it has also looked at alternative models, but would prefer a system that would allow drivers to remain independent. We looked at alternative models, and the one that would work best for drivers is what we're supporting in the ballot measure. They remain independent and can work whenever they want while also receiving additional health care benefits and an earnings guarantee. So you see what they're doing. All they are doing is restating what they really want. Now, Uber was a little more open to saying, hey, there are options. But in the process, they pounded on all of the negative components that could result from these options. But the way I see it, those are the only 4 options available. Do I think shutting down in California is a hollow threat? No, I don't. I think it's a distinct possibility, but I think that it's unlikely because Uber would rather have a little money coming in than no money at all. Uber would rather keep their brand out there than have it come to a screeching halt. It's very difficult to get traction once something is stopped and shut down. So they do not want that to happen. So once again, we are looking at 4 options. Comply and concede. I don't think they're going to do that. Ignore. They're absolutely not going to do that. Completely stop operation. I don't think that's going to happen. Or get an extension. That's a possibility. I don't know what the likelihood of that is. There could be some things going on in the background. Or they could license the brands out to other businesses, fleet operations. Very high likelihood. What do you think? Especially if you're in California. I'd like to hear what you think because these are all viable options. There's only 3 or 4 days What do you think is going to happen in that time? I would love to hear your comments. This will be really fun. In a week, it'll be a lot of fun to look back and say, hey, look what we thought and look what really happened. Now, when I say fun, I don't mean that in the big picture. I know this is something that's very disturbing and frightening to a lot of drivers in California. I would say, rest assured, you're not going to be out of work in a week. I think in some form or another, rideshare is still going to be out there. And that was my look at what I think is probably going to happen. So as always, I encourage you to like and share the videos. Leave your comments down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe by clicking my face in the corner. And don't forget to ring that bell icon. That way you'll know when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, everybody. My name's Mark, and this is Mark's Travel Time.